Hello everybody, it's me. This video is a review of a comic book. Yes. So I was asked to read Lucifer book 1. I'm going to read all of them. This video is only for the first book, so if you haven't read it and for whatever reason you don't want spoilers, then yeah, bye. Those of you still with me, here's my take on Lucifer book 1. It's very good, but not for the reasons that a comic book is normally good. Comic books, in my experience, albeit limited that it is, are good because they have memorable characters, they have an art style, or they have some kind of um, aesthetic or a theme. Then there's a good story too, but the aesthetic and the theme kind of go together really well and help the comic be entertaining because most of the content in the comic book is visual, right? You have words, sure, and you have dialogue, but if you were to take a comic and remove all of the dialogue and just have the visuals, you wouldn't enjoy it the same way. Just like you wouldn't enjoy it the same way if the visuals were gone, but you only had the dialogue. There's a certain tone that is set in comic books, and I think that the tone and mood of Lucifer Book 1 is a bit more sedate. And not sedate in a tranquil sense. There's a lot going on, but it's sedate in the sense that there's a calm, collected stoicism to the goings-on of the book. And a lot of that has to do with the overarching themes of fate and predestination that are, honestly, I was reminded of The Matrix. The Matrix 1, 2, and 3 are very much about, okay, there's this system, this simulacrum, and we're part of it. How do we break its control over us? And then by the end you discover, spoiler alert, control is an illusion. Mr. Robot tells us that control is an illusion, that you can make small choices, but you're still playing into a grand or overarching narrative, and that's kind of what this story is about. And it does flip some narrative tropes on their head. For example, the main protagonist, the good guy in this story, is a antagonist. He's a villain, or at least that is the language that is couched. Language used to refer to him in the story is couched in the narrative that he is an antagonist, that he is evil, that he's wrong, that he's bad, and he's the devil. He's literally Satan. Okay, that's who he is. But the way in which they present his character is nuanced so that it has you rooting for him, not because you want to see some kind of evil outcome, but more that you've become so tired and sick and just bored with the one-dimensional, almost caricatures that everyone else is. And I don't think that the angels in the story and the other characters in the story that are the good guys are one-dimensional because of bad writing. On the contrary, I think the writing is good. I think us as the audience perceiving the heavenly host and its armies and its politics and social nuances as one-dimensional is purposeful, because these are beings that are unwittingly part of a plan, or the degree to which they're self-aware about their willing participation is limited. So then you can draw a distinction between, all right, what is the difference between somebody or something that is being controlled by something else that is unaware of it, and the same concept but with something that is aware of it. So even though somebody can be a puppet who can see their own strings, can be aware of the fact that they're a puppet, that doesn't necessarily mean that they can stop being a puppet. But there is a distinction in the self-expression and idealization of concepts like fate and destiny, or doom and gloom and all that, with the puppet that can see the strings, if that makes sense. So that's the kind of hokey narrative that they bounce back and forth. And the goals of Lucifer in the first book are not super clear. And another thing that's interesting is at the end, when you finally figure out what he's trying to do, he's trying to return to the source, or the the beginning, or the ground floor as it's referred to in the book. He's trying to go to the void, and he wants to take one of these other angels and bring about a third impact or a TK class restructuring event, whichever lingo you prefer, so that he can become at cause with reality and meta-reality and metaphysics and all that. So he can be his own deity, his own god. He can be in control. But it's not really clear if that's possible, or at least he thinks it's possible. And the decisions that he makes are part of a plan, a narrative, even if that narrative is only what the writers of the book are setting forward. There's still a method of control. So you can get into this really philosophical argument about what is choice? Does free will exist? And these are all very heavy discussions and heavy concepts to ponder, but I think that the fact that this is a comic book and they're able to take these very heavy subject matters and make them approachable for, I imagine, a casual audience would still enjoy this comic. That's impressive. That is a testament to the skill of the writers, that they're able to, invert tropes and narrative themes and popular mythos, dogma, and fiction. And also they're able to encapsulate these really, cosmic concepts like control, divinity, fate, providence, and all that, and make it fit inside a little chat bubble above somebody's head. And I've always said that the best way to explain something isn't to be reductive, it's to be encapsulatory, which basically means you can use humor to explain something. You can use wit or drama to explain something that would otherwise take 30 or 40 pages on a scholarly article to explain scientifically or academically, where in the book it can just say something like lying or deception are a crutch, and if the devil wants to make you do what he wants to make you do, he'll just tell you the straight truth, which is something that I can identify with. I've always felt that language is problematic, because we can say something and not mean at all what we say. And as an autistic person, honesty has always been kind of the go-to, because it fits better, right? The way I describe deception to normal folk from this perspective is that it's like a pair of pants that don't fit right. You can force yourself into those pants. It's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be cumbersome, and you're always going to be aware of it, and it's going to be stressful for you. So there's no point in doing it. I can't think of a scenario in which deception in a commonplace environment is worth that. And I think that the danger of, now switching gears here from autistic people to like weird other things like angels, demons, interdimensional, things that are not normal, drawing a line between those two, the way in which the beings in this comic book communicate is usually pretty straightforward and honest, but it's a different kind of honesty. And it's kind of hard for me to explain, because it's really weird. So the degree to which a entity in this comic book is self-aware influences the degree to which their truth and their deliberate speaking of truth is rational and thought out and impactful. So some of these characters will say something that is, matter of fact and, plainly obvious, but because they're speaking from a position of ignorance about larger factors, the note kind of falls flat. And I really liked how they did that. I think my favorite scene in the entire book was where Lucifer goes to the building without any windows, I think it's called. And there's basically these anime caricature. It's like a caricature of weebs, basically, and they're all trying to kill him, even though it's like dishonorable. So their truth, their code, is to not attack unprovoked and all that stuff. And so they're trying to be dishonest, right? So they're trying to lie with the truth. They're trying to trick him into offending them. They're trying to trick him into doing all these different things where they can maintain plausible deniability. And he's mortal there. Like, he's not using any amazing ability or powers or cosmic energy to defeat them. They're defeating themselves. And I think the fact that he can go through this situation, remain totally calm, and defeat these people using their own stupidity, it makes you ask, are they fated to be stupid? Are they predestined to be stupid? Or is the person refuting these lies, is the person, it's hard to explain. So there's two truths here, right? There's the truth of the honor, the code that these weebs have, and there's the truth that Lou has, who can see what they're doing and understand what they're doing. And his truth is truer, if that makes sense, because he is speaking truth from a position where he is more aware of what's happening. He's more aware of what influences are at play, and he's able to step outside his own ego and in some cases humble himself. And that, in doing so, in humbling himself and in being able to put his ego aside, he becomes this grandiose master manipulator, which is another thing I can totally empathize with, because I get that happens in Eve all the time. Eve Online is full of these grandiose personalities who are willing to break bread with people who you would say, well, why are you talking with that person? And then you realize that there's more going on than you're aware of, and then that changes the narrative, that changes the facts, that changes the truth. So I really liked how, they did all this stuff just to try and kill him, and if they had just been truer than their current truth, they would have done it, but they can't. So they're controlling themselves. They're predestined to fail. So that was cool. I like I like all of the stories except for the one with the grandmas, because the art style really wasn't doing it for me, and the typeface was kind of weird. I think that a lot of the different stories change art style and typeface, and even change typeface within the story to give like a tone or a voice to the character, and I like that. But the story with the girl and the grandmas, it was kind of boring. Like, it didn't really do anything for me. But I understand that she was an essential character and that there was eventually a callback to that in a big way. Um, I'm kind of excited to read book 2, but after reading book 1, I kind of have an idea of where it's going to go, and that happens to me with a lot of literature and media and entertainment, because just like Lou says in the first book, he's able to read the subtext of things a little better, and I think that most people who read this will think that that's like, oh, that's his superpower or whatever. It's not even really a superpower, right? The dumbest person on the planet can be good at reading subtext and be like, okay, so this girl's going to kill that guy. This guy's going to try and take over that spot, and then this guy at that spot is going to say, let's join forces and attack this. Like, you don't need to read Sun Tzu or Machiavelli to understand this, right? This isn't complicated. It's just complex, and I think that's an important distinction to make. So I'm afraid, the same way I'm afraid of all movies and entertainment, is that I'll get to a point where I see where it's going, and the way in which it's going there, the vehicle by which it's traveling there, is just not novel enough to warrant my continued attention. And that's something that's a very real possibility of happening here, but I'll try to hopefully the writing holds up and I'm entertained. But so far, so good. I really liked this, and I plan on doing more videos in the future. If anybody wants to see more videos of me discussing philosophical concepts like the nature of evil or predestination or fate or any of that, just leave some comments, let me know. I can talk for a very long time about this stuff. I have a lot of experience with it. That's it. This was interesting. This was definitely something new. We'll see how long that new car smell lasts, though.